think Eric thought of himself as a renegade hero.
A domestic terrorist.
A white supremacist.
All alone.
A lone wolf.
Lone wolf.
We need to know who these people are before they act. They're coming out of nowhere. Who are these lone wolves? Let me just tell you something about the lone wolf terminology. By the end of the 90s, we had had so many instances of domestic terrorism, and lone terrorists, lone wolves they were calling them. The Bureau came to me and asked me, how can we find out what's motivating them? What makes them different from everyone else?
When I met the Rudolph family in 1984, it was a culture shock. Eric's family was very intelligent, but there's a big difference in the way some of the Rudolphs thought and Eric. I think the turning point for Eric in his childhood was when his father died. Eric's dad was sick with melanoma. He was in the hospital, and they would not administer Laetrile. So then when they wouldn't let him give their dad a drug that wasn't FDA approved, I think Eric blamed the government. I think the entire family blamed the government.
When Eric's father died, his mother, Patty, moved them to North Carolina.
Eric would always joke about Pat and her search for the church.
His mother, what he describes as a seeker. So she was extremely religious.
And that's how they got involved with the Church of Israel. They thought white people were superior to the other races. They would literally tell me that the Bible is the history of the white race.
Eric Rudolph considers himself a superior being, and so he wanted to be recognized for his superiority.
He wanted to be a hero to mankind, and I think that's where the idea of becoming special forces came into play.
Eric was as contradictory as anyone could be. Here's a person who was skeptical of authority his entire life, and all of a sudden, he joined the Army.
The Army kind of put him in his place. You're going to do it their way, not your way. And I think Eric had a problem with that.
And when it turned out that he was not able to join those special forces, those elite troops, that was a huge disappointment to him.
He also was very upset about what he perceived to be the incompetence of those who were higher than him. So what Eric did was he'd had enough of the Army, so he self-reported marijuana use.
And this is what you'll find with these lone offenders, these lone wolves. They are rejected by most groups because they just don't get along.
They're psychologically incapable of making the connections that they would need to make to be successful in a group. So they make relationships with their ideology.
He believes Christianity is not a pacifist religion, that it's a militant religion, and he is a soldier in the Christian army. So because he couldn't join a group, he pretended to be a part of something called the Army of God. The Army of God is basically anyone who is willing to use violence to fight abortion. In fact, he wasn't a member of the Army of God. He was a lone wolf, pretending to be part of a larger outfit. Here's the Army of God manual. Not easy to find. The Army of God will say, we're not responsible, but they'll say, but we really like that he did it.
Lone wolves, they want to be somebody. They have to matter in the world, whether they can become part of a group or not.
It's such a narcissistic way to do things. I'm going to take this into my hands, and I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to bring attention to this. I can't believe that he would even think that he could change things through doing what he did.
These lone offenders, they're frustrated by other people not recognizing their greatness.
There was a loud, very concussive explosion that occurred right in the vicinity of the AT&T Global Village.
Eric Rudolph hit the Olympics because it was a blow to the state. He hated multiculturalism, races coming together, having a good time.
The Olympics would come on, and it was a race thing. It was a one government ideology he had, like a conspiracy theory.
In Eric Rudolph's mind, the United States government was corrupt and evil because it sanctioned abortion.
Eric was mainly against abortion because he felt that it was being performed predominantly on white women. So we couldn't further the white race.
It sanctioned gay liberation.
His brother was gay and had a partner, and Eric had no problem with that. It made no sense.
Eric Rudolph felt a need to kill. but he created all these reasons that justified his murderous rage. And so he could still see himself as a hero, and maybe even more important, others would see him as a hero.
I don't think he was any type of hero. He was a very extreme person. He was self-sufficient, narcissistic, and because he could have been a leader of great men, a disappointment.
He grew up thinking that his family had been wronged, his father was unjustly treated, the government was against them. I don't pity Eric. I think Eric is the guy he wants to be.
The truth of the matter is, it doesn't excuse how he ended up becoming a terrorist, because that's what he was, a domestic terrorist.
People try to differentiate and say, these guys in the 90s were different than these guys in the 2010s. I don't believe that. I think that the motivations are exactly the same.